I missed my 23-day reminder yesterday, so today becomes my 23 daily reminder that the Middle East is not real. And I'm going to have a little bit of a conversation about it today because, it's been 23 days. I think I can elaborate a little bit onto why I decided to do this and why it is so important to me to get this message out there, not just for people of colonial land and not just for people of colonized land that are not our own, but even to my own people. It's really important to me that I remind everybody that the Middle East is not real. Now, a few months ago, I made a video speaking specifically in regards to the fact that it's really interesting and bizarre to witness the extinction of your people. And when I say the extinction of my people, I don't mean a physical extinction, like what we normally refer to when it comes to, like, for example, the animal kingdom or so on, plants, etc. I'm referring to the cultural extinction and the social extinction of my people. Sorry, I'm moving things around while I'm cooking today. My garden is doing beautiful. We have some onion scapes and some scallions right now from the garden. I'm going to add some spinach. This is going to be a spaghetti sauce, just for some spaghetti. And beside it, I'm just boiling some chicken scraps to make my own broth because homemade broth is so much better than store-bought broth. But back to what I'm discussing, which is that the Middle East is not real and why I am having this conversation today. One thing I have to say that I absolutely admire about the indigenous peoples of the North Americas is the simple fact that they have maintained their identities. They know who they are. Despite the violence and the genocide that happened to them, they have managed to still maintain their identity, to recognize who their oppressor is, who their colonizer is, and they hold on to who they are. And there is no way that I can not look at that with admiration and respect, because I look at them and I see the struggle that consistently continues, which I will be going back to the calls of action studies probably tomorrow, and going through them again with all of you to learn what the calls to action were here on Turtle Island in Canada, so-called Canada. But when I think about what they've accomplished versus the other end of the spectrum, where we are talking about quite literally the extinction of the identity of a Muslim. And I do not mean this as a disrespect to my people. Not what I mean at all. There are many who would disagree with me, and that is fine. I do not believe that the identity that I see today is who our people ever were or were meant to be. I believe it is a mixture of the Arab colonialism, Arab colonization, Arabization of our people, because we are not Arab. There may be a few tiny percentages of us who may have some Arab DNA within them, but not many of us do. The closest we'll get is primarily Levantine. The rest are all North African, maybe some Macedonian Greek, although not much because, again, Greek Macedonians didn't intermix and they were also colonizers. And then when you look at just the culture and the radical turn to religion and conservatism within our culture, the lack of open-mindedness, the continued assault on women's rights that continue to escalate, women's identities. This is all colonial bullshit. This doesn't come from our people, because a lot of our people originate from matriarchal tribes, or at least tribes that had respect for women. I know Islam likes to be preached in a lot of their sermons as a religion that brought rights to women. But I know for a fact the Amazigh, for example, had rights of women long before they were converted to Islam or Arabized. And so I guess a part of me is hoping that those of us who are in the diaspora, but also those of us who are still in the motherland, will sit down and think about this and have these conversations. Have the conversation of when we became Arabs, because The Arabs, for most of us, are also our colonizers. And they continue to be our oppressors to this day, along with the British Empire and its extension, which is the United States. And yes, United States, you are an extension of the British Empire. Whether you know it, realize it, are willing to admit it, are educated on it or not, that is what you are. And so sitting in that discomfort and watching a lot of the radicalization or conservatism strike the population to an extent of quite literally terminating a lot of our identity, I can't help but hope that some of my people and any people who are being constantly subjected to erasure of who we are willing to sit in that discomfort for a moment and really ask ourselves the questions of, is this really who we are? So aside from the fact that I do think it's a slur if you call me one, because you're literally calling me a term that was designed to discriminate against my people, among many other peoples who are somewhat related, but not really, with no recognition of what our actual identities are. I sit in the discomfort and hope that I'm not the only one asking those questions. And I'm not the only one having these conversations. And I'm not the only one who is decolonizing and trying so hard to go back to roots that were beaten out of us, exterminated out of us, shamed out of us. It's really difficult to sit there and just observe the end of your people, whether it be literally or socially and culturally. It's really, it doesn't give you a crisis of identity, but you're reminded of how fragile you are, how fragile goodness is. Not that everything about us was good, but everything about us was us. It was authentic, it was real. It wasn't based on traditions passed down to us by other people. It wasn't based on narratives that were forced down our throat. Although we like to say that certain things were spread peacefully, I always remind people, ask the pagans in the room, oh wait, there aren't any left. There were remnants of it still left in my culture until this last religious uprising that made every last aspect of our spirituality that came from our mothers become haram. And so as I sit in that discomfort, knowing, or rather being acutely aware of who I am, and as I sit in that grief and that pain, I want to bring attention that the Middle East is not real. It is Narnia. It is fabricated based on a highly discriminatory term or ideology called Orientalism. The people are not Middle Eastern. They are diverse. Whether it be their ethnic and cultural and tribal identities, or whether it be racially, or whether it be anything, they're not even that similar. Their histories are so complex. And it can't be found on a map. And so, to those who fall outside of the category of people who are thrown into that boat, I hope you're aware of that, so that you can share a part of the story that may be lost. And to those of us who fall within those categories, maybe somehow we can start to find ourselves again. Yeah. Have a day.